to have a segregated account, or at least a physical segregated space where he keeps cash that he's put aside from his Meiser money. And it makes it easier for a person to be able to more freely sort of, let's say, part with it, because once he's put it away in that segregated area or account, he knows it's not mine anymore. Okay. And then we also saw yesterday that you would be allowed to use that money for personal use temporarily. So let's say you need a change, so you can go into that drawer and so forth. Okay. Now, Gabai, Shenimsru lo kasbei tzedakah. Let's talk about a person who's collected money for tzedakah, not his own, but someone or parties, several parties have given him money for tzedakah. Asur lo lahalvosam o lifrot mehem bein la'atzmo bein la'acherim. He's not allowed to use that money to break up someone's. Someone comes over to him and says, "You have change for a 20." You're not, the person who's in charge of the tzedakah money is not just allowed, unless it's for tzedakah itself, right? In other words, if I'm a meshulach, because you're not supposed to use someone else's tzedakah money for personal use. Unless you could, he says, so that's number one. Don't use it to change money, and don't use it to lend. Don't use that money and lend it to other people. Some say that nowadays we can be more lenient, and it would be permitted. So he's quoting the Pischei Tshuva, the name of the Chamudei Daniel, who says that you can be makel. I hear your point, Moshe. It makes sense that it's no one's losing, but apparently, in other words, Chazal wanted a person to be more careful with tzedakah money so that it shouldn't be abused. But nowadays, people are more lenient. Okay. Im nosan kasbei tzedakah lekupat tzedakah nimtzeis beveso, v'hi shayechet lemosad torani or mosad shel chesed. Let's say a person put money in a pushka that's in his own personal home. Let's say, you have Karen Kayemet LiYisrael, or Pe'ilim, or what was that? The blue boxes. Yeah, and then, or let's say you have Kolel Chabad, or NCSY, right? Or, who knows what else. Yeah, all the others over the years. They don't give out pushkas so much anymore. But let's say you have a private pushka in your home, and yesh matir milvos mehem. Can you borrow money from the pushka? So some say that yes, you can. The yesh osram, and some say no, you're not supposed to. The lachain, because it's a machlokes, tov sheyatne keshetol es akupa she'ena rotza shaksafim yushayachim lamosad kol od sheim lo nimsru laosam mosad. Think to yourself that this money does not belong to that moisad until I actually mail them a check or send them the cash. Then everyone would agree that it's permitted. Because you've made sort of like that stipulation when you set up the pushka in your house. That's me. Yeah. Okay. Yesh poskim. She'osim liknos mikasbei tzedakah umikasbei meiser kartis hagrala shenimkar al yedei mosad torani or mosad shel chesed. Can you buy a lottery ticket using meiser money? So, or from tzedakah money. So there are poskim who say that since playing the lottery is for personal entertainment, you're not allowed to use your tzedakah funds to purchase a lottery ticket, even if it's being sold by a Jewish organization. V'yesh matirim, and some are more lenient. And he quotes Rav Vosner, who says it's okay. As you can see, you're going to have a machlokus in almost all of these cases. V'yesh misha matir rak ba'ofen shehamachir ha'amiti shel kartisa hagrala shaveh harbe pachot mehamachir shabo hu nimkar. Hainu shemi she'ein kavanos l'aseh tzedakah lo hayakone kartis b'mechir kazeh. Some, if you win from a lottery, sure, that would, sure. Why would you be used? What's the argument? So look, there was an argument made that if you're using, could you use your miser money, not tzedakah, but miser money, could you use it for other mitzvot for personal use? So there were some who said yes, some who said no. If you wanted to be able to justify using your miser money for mishloach manot, would only be the first one that you're giving, because after that you've already fulfilled your mitzvah, right? And then above and beyond that, you're not you're just doing an additional mitzvah, but you're not obligated to do it. And then of course that the lottery ticket is not the mitzvah of mishloach manot. Mishloach manot is food. So I think it's a tough argument to make. I think you're really stretching it there. Okay.
Rabbi,
So, yes.
Rabbi, in the past we talked about rabbis frowning upon people who play kubi, dice, whatever the case may be, which is a form of gambling.
Yes.
Wouldn't the lottery be a form of gambling? And two questions is, do you give miser from your gambling winnings on dice? And what about, the lottery and things like that?
Right. Okay. So it's a very good question, Shmuel. And we did learn when we were learning Imrei Yaakov, we learned about the whole idea of a person not being allowed to be a habitual gambler. And what that meant was that you're relying on these funds for part of your parnasa. But purely for remember those 900 numbers? This is purely for entertainment purposes, and the fortune teller on TV, right? This is purely for entertainment purposes. But we will tell you, whatever. Anyway, so if gambling is purely for entertainment purposes, and you're not hoping to be able to make parnasa off of it, so then it's mutter on an occasional basis. So there's really technically no isser to go to Atlantic City or to Vegas. It's not really a nice thing for a nice yeshiva bacher to be doing. We wouldn't recommend it for perhaps other reasons, but the gambling aspect per se, if it's for recreational purposes, is considered to be permitted. Should a tzedakah organization be offering a form of gambling as a way of making revenue? A bingo night or a casino night? Yeah. What? Well, right. In other words, if the kola does it, it must be okay, right? So in other words, clearly there are poskim who have said over the years that in order to be able to make tzedakah, if this is a way to make more money, then you can justify it. Give a person a free, the first prize will be 2 round-trip tickets to Israel, and of course they'll be able to have a wonderful experience there. And second prize is 2 weeks in the rabbi's house. Third prize is 3 weeks in the rabbi's house. Yeah, whatever it is, right? Anyway, so you're right, Shmuel. This could raise potential eyebrows. I've been asked over the years, could the buyer do a casino night as a form of revenue? And I said, technically we could, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look. But this has been a tradition in many mostos of tzedakah that they will do a raffle. What can I tell you? Okay, v'yesh mishamatir rak ba'ofen. Some say that it's only permitted to use your meiser money in a circumstance shahamachir ha'amiti shel kartisa hagrala shaveh harbe pachot me'hamachir shabohu nimkar. That the true value of the raffle ticket is worth far less than its face, what it's being sold for. So let's say, in other words, there's a raffle. They're selling 1,000 tickets for a free trip to Israel, or a set of Sfarim, and the price on the raffle ticket is $180. Now, for a set of Sfarim, I should pay $180 and get a 1 in 1,000 chance to win. That doesn't seem to be equitable. In other words, it doesn't seem that the chances are great, and it's hard to justify paying that much money for just a set of Sfarim, right? But so therefore, that's the argument to justify using your Meiser money, because normally I would never buy a raffle with those odds for that kind of money unless it was going to tzedakah. Anyone who wasn't doing it purely for tzedakah purposes would never have bought a raffle ticket like that. Right. That's right. So if you're doing it primarily for the Mossad, then it's perfectly okay. Right? As to whether the Mossad should be selling raffle tickets, it's already being done by so many different mostos. It's just a question. I mean, certainly I could hear someone saying, I don't feel comfortable doing it for my Mossad, but it really is done routinely. Okay. I don't know what to say. Imzacha bekartis hagrala shenimkar al yedei Mossad Torani. Now, what happens if you are the winner? So, yesh matir et hazechia lekona hakartis rak kishe hamatanot shemechalek hamosad hein mitrumot shenitramu b'matara lechalkam lemishtatfim bahagrala. Yesh mishamatir et hazechia lekona hakartis. He says some poskim say that if you win the lottery, you're only entitled to take the prizes when those prizes are purchased from the costs of from the money that was collected for the purchase of the raffle, right? In other words, when they budgeted this tzedakah campaign, they said we'll sell 1,000 raffles for $180 a piece. We'll make $180,000, and we'll buy $10,000 in prizes. So it's a pretty good deal, right? And so you can take the $10,000 in prizes because that was budgeted in the cost of selling the raffle. Some say that you can accept the prize even if the tzedakah purchased it from the money from the Mossad before they even sold without that, when it didn't come from the proceeds of the raffle. And some say that really everything should be given to the charity, and you shouldn't take the prize. Doesn't really make sense if this was what was being done, that and the raffle was being sold on the condition that you're allowed, that they're giving away a prize. I don't see any argument to I mean, it could be that in this Shiloh's Teshuvas Evan Yisrael that he's quoted, that the argument is that the charity really doesn't want you to accept the gift. They want you to give the gift back to charity. But you're not really obligated to do that. Okay, let's go on to Siman Tes. Ketzad yitain tzedakah. How should one give tzedakah? So, in other words, this is now going to explain to us the proper attitude that a person should have when giving tzedakah. So first of all, tzarich lateit tzedakah b'sefer panim yafot. You have to have a nice countenance when you give tzedakah. Be a mensch, b'simcha u'betuv leivav. Smile when you give the guy your money. Should be done with joy and a good heart. Umit onein im ha'ani b'tzaro u'medaber lo divrei tanchumin. And you have to, at the same time, if the meshulach is coming to you with tears in his eyes because he's got to support his family, he doesn't know where he's going to get the money to pay for his kid's operation and things like that. So you have to commiserate with him and empathize with him and try to offer him words of consolation. In other words, be a human being, and recognize that this person is a brother or a sister of yours. It's not always easy to do that because sometimes the meshulach is obnoxious, right? In other words, what do you do with an obnoxious meshulach who feels that you're giving him not enough? Yeah. And so it's hard, and you have to try and rise above it. Just because you, the tzedakah collector, are not acting like a mensch does not give me a right to be ois mensch also. So I have to try and rise above your bad behavior and just try to continue smiling. Okay, not easy.
Can you say, okay, no thanks, see you later?
Yeah, of course you can.
You can.
Yeah, if a person's being obnoxious, is insulting you or telling you what a terrible person you are for not giving him the amount that he's expecting you to give, you can show him the door.
You're in the middle of a mitzvah of davening, and it's up to you. So it doesn't your mitzvah what you're already involved with overtake the.
Yeah. Osek b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. You could basically ignore him if you're in the middle of davening, and you probably should ignore him when you're in the middle of davening. It doesn't matter at what stage of the davening, you should ignore him and just commence with your mitzvah. And that's why our policy is that the shluchei mitzvah are not allowed to collect during davening. Not everyone respects the policy, but it is what it is. Now, the imnasna b'fanim zo afos v'raos avar al lav de lo yera levavcha. Now, what if you give the tzedakah with a frown and with resentment? So then you have violated a mitzvah of the Torah, because the Torah says, "Nason titain lo," you shall surely give to the poor man, v'lo yera levavcha b'sitcha lo, and it should not be bad in your heart when you give him. In other words, it's written in the Torah. Don't feel bad or don't have bad feelings when you give the guy tzedakah. So you violated that. So you, the meshulach, who is being obnoxious, you've caused me to violate that mitzvah. This part I didn't know. You also lose out on the benefits of tzedakah that are promised by God in the Torah. So he says in the footnote, what? In other words, the giver loses out because the Torah says that if you give tzedakah, you will become wealthy. But if you give tzedakah resentfully and not nicely, you lose that guarantee. And so he quotes the pasuk. He quotes the pasuk that I quoted for you because it says, "V'lo yira levavcha b'sitcha lo," let it not be bad in your heart when you give him. Ki biglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha Hashem b'chol ma'asecha u'b'chol mishlach yadecha. Because by doing this, i.e., by giving tzedakah with a good heart, God will bless you in all of your behavior and in everything, in all of your enterprises. Upirshu shahanosein be'etzev lamrot shekim mitzvos nason titain lo. So the way these meforshim understanding this pasuk is that even though you fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah, which is nason titein lo, mikol makom, ifsid scharo ba'olam hazeh hamuftach b'pasuk, ki biglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha Hashem b'chol ma'asecha. But you've lost the reward in this world that this pasuk also says, that if you do it, Hashem will bless you in everything you do. Kevin da'avar al v'lo yira levavcha b'sitchala, since you violated the prohibition of not feeling bad and being with a scowl. Okay.
Many things like this, well, it's stuck up. So is there a correlation there, or are they going to be going to the category of Mishpat?
Well, so first of all, I think you're asking a couple of different questions. Number one, can you say that a person who doesn't give charity is a tinok shenishba? The second question that you're asking is, I think there's a second question in there, which is when a person is not that religious and doesn't give the charity that he's supposed to give, I'm not sure if there is a second question. There are people that I would say qualifies as a tinuk shenishba if, based on their upbringing, they don't feel that charity is a priority. But I think that there's a big difference between being a tinuk shenishba of not observing Shabbos and a tinuk shenishba of not giving tzedakah. Because giving tzedakah is a humanitarian thing to do. Yeah. However, right now, and that's the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that it's one of these mitzvahs bein adam lechavero that everyone should feel a natural desire to fulfill. And so it's a little bit harder to say that a person is a tinok shenishba that like he never knew. But with that said, I also think that Jews, I was just listening to a podcast last night about Honey and Barry Sherman. It's a really interesting, this is from the CBC. CBC is doing it's like a, I don't know, multi-part series on Honey and Barry Sherman. And they were saying, they were interviewed this Christian woman who was a friend of Honey Sherman or whatever. And she said, Jews tend to give more charity than Christians. Yeah, we know it's a fact. And the question is so can you say it's because innately Jews are more kind-hearted and soft-hearted than Christians? I think that would be a hard sell for me. I'm not sure I would buy that. There is embedded within the culture of Judaism is you're supposed to give. Just like embedded within the culture of Judaism is that your child should become a professional, an anchor or a doctor or whatever. In other words, these are things that are part of a cultural upbringing. And so what if a person never had that cultural upbringing? Maybe what if a person I remember when I was in yeshiva, you talked about chinuch atzmi. The yeshiva used to send out the bachrim for chinuch atzmai, right? I didn't know the difference between mamlachti schools and chinuch atzmai. I thought, okay, it sounds like a worthy cause. So I went, this yeshiva sent us out. So I went with a chaver of mine. We were both like 18, 19 years old. And they sent us to Montreal to collect tzedakah. And most people in the Frum neighborhood, one person gave us $5, another person gave us $10. Everyone gave. And then we went to this more wealthy neighborhood where the people were not from. A guy's out in his garage and we say, we want to talk to you about schools in Israel. The guy says, I just gave $18,000 to UJA. You want to see my plaque? That was his response. And he was quite rude to a couple of yeshiva bachers, right? I'll never forget that. So what's the lesson? The lesson is that there was he viewed himself as being a great philanthropist. But culturally, his attitude was, or another guy said, we don't discuss charity at the door. That was the line. I don't discuss charity at the door of my house, right? And that was his cultural attitude. Now, he is a Tinok Shenishvat, because for an Orthodox Jew, what do you mean you don't discuss charity at the door? That's where charity is given, it's at the door, right? So it takes all kinds. So I think that you could say that there are, everyone is stirred in their heart to do good, but some people don't have the upbringing that you got to do good from the wallet, right?
I remember, Rabbi,
Yeah. Yes, Izzy.
I remember when I worked for Olympia in New York, he had a fellow designated just to give tzedakah. This guy had the best computer, anybody in the company, to keep track of what he was doing there. So all the Moshalachim would come up to the office, go to him, and they'd get a big check or whatever they would get.
Who was this? Who was this? Who was this?
Olympia in New York, the Reichmans.
Oh, the Reichmans.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's right. I mean, the Reichmans, their system of tzedakah was apparently like, the finest, and you would feel like a prince when you went to collect tzedakah from them. Yeah. So, there's just different ways of doing it. Okay. Harotza liskos la'atzmo, Yaakov yitzro hara v'yarchiv yado. If a person is feeling a sense of stinginess, in other words, I don't want it. I mean, oh man, I just got I just got paid, and I was going to go and use this money to go out with some friends. And now this guy's coming along with his song and dance, and now I got to give him some money. So, it's sometimes not easy to part with your money, but you should overpower your Yetzer Hara and open up your hand. V'chol davar shehu l'shem shamayim yihiyeh mehatov v'hayafeh. And furthermore, anything that you do for the sake of heaven should always be from the best part of what you have. He'echil ra'ev ya'achil mehatov v'hamatok shebeshulchano. When you're feeding someone who is hungry, you should always give them from the best food that's on your table. Don't give them from the leftover kugel from Shabbos. Give them the fresh kugel that you're just, you got the old kugel that's from the leftovers and it's Thursday, you were going to throw it out. Don't give that to the meshulach. You just made a fresh kugel. Give him that one. Kisa arom. If you're giving your clothes away to a poor person, give them away your finest clothing. And this is what the Torah means when it says that all chelev should go to Hashem. Meaning the word chelev is the fattest, or the highest quality of what you have. And that, of course, also could be a very big nisayon, because you want to give that story about the turkey. I've told that story before. So there, in Europe, getting a turkey was a very rare thing. Not a lot of people could afford a turkey, and it wasn't so available to get a kosher turkey. So one day, this man brings home a turkey to his wife, and he says, "Look, honey, look what I bought. I wanted to, I found a great deal on it. Someone was selling it, so I brought it home." And his wife looks at the turkey. She takes it, she smells it, and she says, "This doesn't smell good. I think it's been out too long. I don't want to use it." So all of a sudden they get a knock on the door, and guess who it is? It's a meshulach. So the husband says, "You know what? We'll give the turkey to the meshulach." So they give him the turkey to the meshulach. They happen to know he's the ani in the community. So they'll give him, they'll give Yankel the schnorrer. They'll give it to Yankel. So next week they hear Yankel has gotten very sick. So they go visit him and see how he's doing. And, they wish him well. And then a few days later, they heard that Yankel, the schnorrer, has passed away. So they go to the Levaya, they go to the Shiva house, And as they're leaving the Shiva house, the husband turns to his wife and he says, look at look at this. We were able to give tzedakah, to do bikur cholim, to comfort mourners. So many mitzvahs with just one turkey. Right? Yeah. So many mitzvahs with just one turkey. Yeah. So you got to be careful. Don't give the meshulach the spoiled food. Is that right? Give him the best. Okay. Asur lahachzir rekam. Oh, wait, it's time to go. Sorry. See you tomorrow.